Today we're working on block 4 of the Designer Mystery Block of the Month. This is a block of the month by Fat Quarter Shop. Each month has a different designer that designs it. Come along with me while I sew this together, make some mistakes, fix most of them, but it comes out okay. Hi, today I'm working on the Fat Quarter Shop's Designer Mystery Block of the Month, Block 4. I have my block cut out. I have my pattern. That folded fabric is the extra fabric I had after cutting out my block. I have my roof. And then these are my pieces for the setting. These are the setting pieces. So come sew with me and let's put this together. Hey y'all, so we're getting ready to do the Designer Mystery Block of the Month. This is block 4 called Token of Love. This is by Chelsea Stratton, and this is the Fat Quarter Shop Designer Mystery Block of the Month, and we're going to sew it up. So thank you so much for being here with me while we sew it up. Okay, this is my block all cut up. Okay, so we're just going to begin at the beginning. So the first thing we're going to do is B and F. So here's B and here's F. I'm just going to follow the pattern exactly how it's mentioned. So I'm not going to show the pattern, but we're just going to stitch it up exactly in the pattern. So there's a lot of ways you can make these half square triangles. I'm just going to show you how I make mine. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to mark our squares. So we're going to draw a mark on the back, and then we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch on each side of that mark. Now, when you choose to get marking tools, you have a lot of different choices. So I'm just going to share with you a couple of the ones that I use and what we're going to use today. So I have these. These are called water erasable pins. I believe that they're a Japanese water pen. They come off with water. So if you rub it with your hand, it won't come off. But if you spray it, like with your spray bottle or with your starch, it will come off. I use these a lot. I get them on Amazon. I think they're about $7 or $8 for 5. They work great. That's the first thing. The next thing you can use are friction pins. These can be can have a couple of issues. So these are by Pilot, and they have a couple of different kinds. These are markers, and I use them quite frequently. I have some out right now, and this is probably what I'll use today. Some people do get upset with these because they have found if they use them to mark the top of their quilt, the color can come back based on temperature changes, because the whole idea of these is it uses friction. Like there's like an eraser type material here at the top, and you can erase it, or in the case of quilters or sewing, you'll often use an iron, and that will erase it. But if there's temperature changes in your house, then the marks can come back. For that reason, I've never had an issue, but I try not to use these on the tops of my quilts. But if it's a place that won't show, I'm not worried about it. The next thing I like to use, and I have used way before I had money for any of the other things, this is just a regular Bic automatic pencil. And I found that the marks come out in the wash. They're pretty light, but you can mark with it all you want, and it works just fine. So I'm going to draw the lines, and I'll be right back. Okay, something else when it comes to marking is your choice of ruler. And like everything else, you got a bazillion choices. So I'll show you my choices and what I use. So this I've been using forever. So this I've been using for a very long time. This is a Dritz ruler, and it measures a 1/2 inch across. So what I like to do is take this line. So I draw my line down the middle of the square. I'll show you in a minute. You can kind of see how that looks. And then I line this line up with that middle of the square, and then I can draw on either side. So this was a Joann's find. I think I probably got this about 15 or 20 years ago. I don't know if they still have them. That's my first choice. This Creative Grids one, it works similarly. It's got some slashes in the middle that will work perfect for a pencil. I don't know about a marker, but it's the same kind of idea. You use this to draw like a dotted line in the middle of your square, and then you can draw on either side. So there's only one movement with this. I think I got this in the Sew Sampler from Fat Quarter Shop. I don't use it very often, but I keep it when I can't find my Dritz ruler. Then you just have your standard regular rulers. These happen to be Creative Grids, but you could use whatever you like. I like these because they have this mark here for the 1/4 inch, so you could line up your mark right in the middle, and then you know you have a 1/4 inch. You could also do it for a 1/2 inch, like flip it around if you wanted to, but I don't usually use these, but they can work, and they'll work just fine. So also we have these two squares. We have a white and a print. So if you're going to write on the white, I probably wouldn't recommend using one of these dark colored options. I would use either this one that goes on blue, the Japanese water pen, and it comes off with water, or I would use a pencil, because you don't, if something happens with the temperature and these do come back, you don't want that to show through your square. So I think that we'll work on this on the pink side, and I'll show you how I do it. So I think it'll make more sense once you see how I do it. Okay, I went and got a small cutting mat so you could see it better than trying to do it on the machine. You don't really need any measurements. Sometimes the lines on the cutting mat can help. So I'm just going to take my Dritz ruler, and first I'm going to line it up from corner to corner. Once I have that, I'm going to draw my line. Now that my line's there, I'm just going to line up the center line that's on the ruler. And I'm going to draw a line on either side. And there we go. You can't see the purple on the other side. Here are our lines. Now we're not going to sew on this middle one. That's going to be our cut line. We're going to sew on either side. So I will do that real quick here on this other one. You'll get to see it again. Just going to line those up on the same line. Take our ruler. Just like that. I line up that middle line with the line we just drew, and I am going to draw my line on either side. As another note, if you were worried about crossing your hand, you could just rotate it. These rotating mats are super fun. So there's that. All right, I'll put the cutting mat away and we'll come back to the sewing machine. Okay, so we're back at the sewing machine. I had to thread it, and so I've gotten that all taken care of. We're going to sew on these two sidelines here, and then we'll cut it and I'll take it over to the iron. So I'll do it. I was going to flip it around, but we'll do it on this side so we can see our lines, and we'll sew this up. It looks like I am slightly off here on my square. I have plenty of fabric, so if this doesn't work, then I will recut them out. But I will say these pieces are pretty generous. This isn't too exacting of a block, so we should be okay. So I'm just going to cut here on this middle line. Okay, so we have all 4 of these cut up, and so now it's time for our next step. Now we take piece E. Here's piece E. And we're going to put it on the side, and we're going to make 4 of them where we just sew this on the side here, looking like these right here. So I'm going to do I and E, and then I'll take everything to the iron at once. So here I have I, and we're going to sew that onto E, and it makes these cute little corner sections. So oftentimes I will work on a pattern and I will sew together everything I can until I have to iron. In this case, since we're going by the pattern, I'll go ahead and iron these and iron these, and then we'll get them sewn together and I'll be right back. Okay, so we've gotten both these sections all ironed with a little bit of starch. So now we're going to work on sewing them together as there are corner units. And so they're just going to go right like that. So here we go. And what I'm doing is I'm lining up these seams. So this might be a little longer, this might be a little longer. We'll trim that up when we're done. Right now I'm just trying to get my seams to match up. Okay, we'll press and starch these in a minute, but we're going to do the next part here before we do that, and then we'll take them both to the ironing board at once. So we're going to have K and D. So if these were the corner blocks, these will like connect the corners, you'll see. So this is just real simple. It's just a straight stitch as we connect K and D. Okay, we'll take these to the iron and get them all stitched up. Okay, so we've gotten these all trimmed, ironed, and starched. They look really nice. We have these all sewn on, ironed, and starched. They look really nice. And now it's time for the next part. Okay, so I might have to go and get a bigger design board here, but I wanted to show you what we have done so far so you could kind of get an idea. So we've done the 4 corners, we've done the connecting here, and now we're going to do the fill-in. So let's get started on that. So for this next part, we're going to do H and A, and we're going to cut them up into quarters. So we're going to draw a line similar to what we did last time, but we're going to draw an X, and then we'll cut on that. And so I'll show you drawing my lines, and then I'll cut them and I'll come back. Okay, so we have A and H. We're going to, just like here on this part, we're just going to cut them into quarters here. We're going to cut 2 diagonal lines and then trim those. So I'll show you as I draw the lines here with my handy dandy ruler and pin. But we probably want to use a light color or a pencil. We'll see. Just going to line up the corners here. Then we'll do this part. Looks good. I think we can use the same yellow on this one. It's a little harder to see the yellow on the red, but I think it'll be just fine. Okay, I'll take these to the cutting mat and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have our 4 sets of triangles here for each color. They get set aside. And then we're going to take G, which is right here, and we're going to cut it on the diagonal just once. So we'll get our handy dandy rotary cutter here, and this one will work. And I happen to have this ruler right here, and I want to cut these at once. Just want to make sure that they line up. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then we're going to trim these right down the middle. Oh, didn't get it all the way. Of course, I think that blade's a little old. It probably needs a new one. Okay, so we have 4 of these. So now what we're going to do is the red and the white, we're going to sew those together to make one triangle. And then after we do that, we're going to sew the bigger triangles onto the side. And that's what makes our center here. So I'll pull my sewing machine back and we'll get started on those. Okay, so we're going to sew these on this line. And let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to line it up there with my 1/4 inch, maybe scoot it up a bit. Line it up with my 1/4 inch. So my triangles, they're all sewn together. Now you could absolutely get these, you could trim them up before you sew them onto the bigger triangle. I will trim up my blocks after I do that. So next we're going to go ahead and sew them onto this bigger triangle. We will take these over to the ironing board and get them all ironed and pressed and trimmed up. Okay, I came back before I had trimmed them up because I know you all were seeing me make mistakes while I was doing this, and these are to trim at 2.5. So I just wanted you to be able to see this is my 2.5. This is my 2.5 ruler. So this is 2.5 square. This is one of my pieces. Okay, so we're going to line up our diagonal line like that, circle in the middle, as long as it doesn't move on me. Okay, there's our square, all perfect. See, we had a lot of extra. So when you're doing this, and you can worry about accuracy. Accuracy can be important, but I would also think about what's going to happen with this quilt when you're done. For me, this quilt will not be in a show. This quilt will probably be on the back of a couch or at the foot of my bed. It will be loved by my children, animals, whatever. So it does not have to be exact by me. But that ends up being a personal choice. But I wanted you to see that we have plenty of wiggle room here. Also, I'm not making these quilts to make these perfect items to hang in my home. I'm making this because I enjoy the process and the colors. And that is more important to me than the stress of always being accurate. the next thing we have is J and B, and we need to do with these what we did at the beginning, where we're going to put a line on the back of them. So this time I think we'll do the B, and we will just put a line just like we did before. Here's my handy ruler. So this time, what I did is I did not draw the line in the middle. I lined up my ruler on the points, and then I just drew on either side. And then I'll just cut down the middle when I cut. And so let me do this one as well. Okay, now we're going to bring our machine back and sew these together. Okay, so we have these. We are going to lay them on top of each other, right sides together, and we're going to sew on our green lines. At this point, so when you get to the end, you can cut them apart, or you can just turn it around and chain stitch on the other side and cut both lines at once. Okay, we have our two sewn together. We will clip our threads. So this again depends on how accurate you want to be, this next part. You could potentially take your ruler, line it up with the stitch line, and draw a line here, and then cut with your rotary, and it will be exactly in the middle. Or you can take your scissors, handy dandy scissors, and just eyeball it, which is what we're going to do. Then we're going to press and starch these and trim them up, and we'll be right back. So, in the interest of being honest, I wanted to come back and show you my error. I ironed these on upside down. So now I need to rip them apart, sew them back on, and then press and trim up. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've gotten those all cut out, trimmed up after my little issue here with the actually sewing them on upside down. So I had to rip them out. That's where all these threads came from. But we got that taken care of. I actually keep a pair of tweezers right here just for such an occasion, and it helps me get out all those loose threads. Okay, so we're going to sew these with these, and then C right here, which is just a plain square, that will be our middle square. So we'll probably do this one first, and then these go out like this. Oh, let me make sure that I'm not doing it wrong this time. Okay, so these middle ones go like this, as we can see in our pattern. And they go with the white in the middle. Okay, so now we have our middle. So we'll press that in just a minute. Then we have each of these pieces. They're both going to go the same. And these white and blue go on either side with their points sticking out like this and like that. Okay, so we have our square laid out here on the design board, and then we're going to sew it up and put the binding and everything on it to match this square. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to sew this up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've gotten the entire block put together here. So our next step is to do the sashing and the roof, the setting. So I already have that cut out and we'll get to work on that. Let me show you. Okay, so this is the pattern for the setting. This is the pattern for the setting. This block gets the gray here, and these are pieces R and S. So you can see here's block 4. I already have the flower made, the background for that, the settings, and the roof. So we're going to get started on that. Okay, so we've gotten the 2 R's sewn on. I'm going to sew on S on the bottom, and I'll come back and show you. Okay, so we've gotten S sewn on. So the next thing is to sew on C. That goes right here on the sides. We'll get that done, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we're almost done. We still need to put the roof on the top, which is already made. That's just a simple one seam. And then we sew on the flower next to it, and we'll be all done, and I'll show you what it looks like. This is block 4. So it came out pretty well. I made a few mistakes, but I was able to fix them. If I back up here, then you'll be able to see all the blocks so far. So thank you so much for sewing along with me. Bye-bye now.